Are you trying to brew beer, but it's freaking hot outside like it is here in Western Montana? Hello, my name's Garrett, and I'm your degenerate brewing expert. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up an overnight mash and some of the amazing benefits it unlocks. This is how I structure my brew days in the summertime to be able to brew when it's hot. First, we're going to take advantage of the cooler evenings and start the mash then, as well as mash overnight to take advantage of the cooler morning to conduct the boil and finish then. Here I am setting up everything at about 8 p.m. and I know this will give me 2 to 2.5 hours to get the strike water up to temperature and mash. I still have plenty of daylight and I won't be in a rush in order to get to bed by 10:30 or 11. One of the ways I speed up my brew day is I pull hot water directly from the water main right outside of my water heater. This water is 115F, and since there are no faucet restrictions, I'm able to collect about 5 gallons in a minute. This water being at 115F will only need to be heated to 160F in the boil kettle, a whole 45 degrees, so it doesn't take all that long. While the water is coming up to strike temperature, I'll mill out my grains and measure out my salt and acid additions. Ordinarily, this is where I lock up the mash tun for a night and call it an evening, but we're going to go on a little bit of a side quest instead. After 30 minutes into the mash, we're going to pull a couple liters of wort and do what's called a real wort starter, where basically we take this wort, we boil it for 10 minutes, add a little bit of hops, and then make a yeast starter out of it because it's going to have a 12 to 15 hour head start on the main batch the next day. After I wake up, make coffee, and get denied morning sex, I'll head out to the brew station. If I were making a party gal beer, I'd use this time to heat up 5 gallons of sparge water, then temporarily store it in a keg for later use for my small beer. Today I'm not doing that, so I'll quickly Vorloff, then lauter. While I'm collecting my wort and it's coming up to a boil, I'll go inside and in a small pot I'll start some water to boil and I'll put my tubing in there as well as the floats, and then I will sanitize both kegs with Star San and prepare them for keg fermentation later. Now that the boil is finished and the whirlpool is complete, I'll lift the kettle into a siphon position and I will use food grade, temperature tolerant, thermoplastic tubing and start a siphon into the eventual fermentation vessels. Once I've collected enough wort in each keg, I'll use a CO2 regulator and set the lids with 30 psi of CO2. Now I'll bring the hot wort to a place where I can chill it, and because I don't have access to unlimited running water or even have a wort chiller, I'll just use my cistern and kind of work it as a pseudo water bath to bring it down to a pitchable yeast temperature. The water in my cistern remains at about 60F, which means in about 45 minutes, every time I walk past it, maybe 5 or 6 times, if I just swirl the water around it, it'll lower the wort to about 95F, and that's exactly where I need to be to pitch a kveik. So these real wort yeast starters have had about a 15-hour jump on my main batch, and they look very healthy, and they smell healthy, so I'm going to use one on one keg and a fresh pack on the other. After 45 minutes, when I've got the wort down to a pitchable temperature, I'll pull them out of the cistern and then I will start aerating them by giving them a good shake. I'll pop the lid and then I'll add the yeast starter, the real wort yeast starter that I started the day before, into the fermentation vessel. I'll put the lid back into place and then I'll use 30 pounds of CO2 to set the lids. Back inside, I'll add the kegs to a water bath, the sous vide to keep it at temperature, and then slap on the spunding valves for fermentation. I know people say you can move these kveiks really fast, but I prefer to give mine a full 5 days at fermentation temperature. Then I'll drop them in the refrigerator, let them cool, and then I'll hit it with some gelatin to fine it out. This cream ale tastes just as good as it looks.